everybody, and welcome to That Night in Spider-Man show, but not as you know. This is us talking about Far From Home, but specifically about the end credits scene, because, well, if you look further back, we're talking about Far From Home, but we had a runtime of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And we were here for fucking ages, and we thought, why not split things in two? We'll talk about the movie itself in another, episode. You can actually check that out. But we'll be talking about the end credit scenes and what they mean in the future for the MCU and for Spider-Man movies in the MCU. But yeah, let's kick it. So yeah, we'll talk about the end credits scene. I am your co-host today, I'm Henry, and alongside me is your other co-host, which is Jack.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to just dive right in. And with the immortal words that we all love to hear, J. Jonah Jameson, he's back.
He's back, and I had a fucking heart attack.
I had more than a heart attack.
Yeah. It was oh man, it was something. But first, the context of how he came into the scene, right?
Okay. So how does Far From Home end?
Well, we end with the classic Spidey swing with the love interest, but a little bit of a twist now of it being like actually a really weird and horrible experience for her because it's really scary.
Yeah.
Like being on a roller coaster, which is actually, I like that.
She's just screaming the whole way through.
I love the romantic, idyllic, like Mary Jane swing from the first Spider-Man movie, but doing it this way is like a fun twist on that.
Way funnier.
So there's that, and then they land.
Spider-Man's like, I gotta go now, but then as that moment comes up, like Times Square lights up.
Yeah, and it's Electro. No, that's the wrong movie.
Wrong movie. Yeah. There's no dubstep in this movie. Thankfully.
But there is a reappearance of another villain. We got Mysterio, who's secretly filmed some footage that we didn't see, like during the final battle, right? And which was whisked away by like one of his helpers who like got on a USB and suspiciously had the dirty, suspicious eyes and then ran away.
I just did them. You can't see, but yeah.
So he announces that he's cut the footage in such a way that Spider-Man ending the drone attack makes it look like he's culpable for it. Yeah.
And even he takes his own words and he makes it sound like Peter Parker said them, not him.
Such as?
So in the bit where he's like, oh, you're in they're telling him you're in the drone firing line. He's like, no, just execute all the drones.
Well, that's something that Peter Parker did say.
Is it? Oh,
yeah, because there's a weird thing because Edith has a thing where he says stop the attack or whatever, and then Edith says, do you want to execute that command? And then he says, yeah, I guess execute all drones or something.
Execute them all, yeah.
Or execute them all. I remember at the time being like, that's weird wording, and then you get to this point, you're like, oh, okay, I see why. It's the biggest scumbag move.
It's such a dick move.
It's such a dick move. And the thing is, right, is this because this could be two ways, right? This is either Mysterio dead, last ditch, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker, but if I die or if I'm apprehended, we've got this. And then he dies, and that's his legacy is being a hero and getting revenge beyond the grave. Or is it just is Mysterio still alive somehow? Because I'm not joking when I say he could be, because he's fucking Mysterio. He
generally could be alive.
Yeah, and again, he was using Edith, and it's Edith that confirms that he's dead. So they could easily have come up with something about him hacking it, or that being a replacement for Edith. There's a million things they could do and bring him back if Jake Gyllenhaal says yes.
I'd be so down for that.
I'd be down for it. I'd be happy for him to just be a bit role in another thing, or to have a, to show up and then Spider-Man already knows how to beat him. Yeah. So he isn't a huge threat.
The scene from the Spider-Man 2 video game.
Yeah, where he just knocks him out in a punch. Yeah. That whole it could be any of that. It was a really interesting twist there, and then it gets stepped up a gear because then we get him trying to share Spider-Man's identity, but he gets cut off.
Yeah.
Then we cut to J. Jonah Jameson, right?
As none other than J.K. Simmons, people.
Yeah, J. Jonah Jameson starring as J.K. Simmons.
Yeah. But other way around. You know what I mean? But yeah, so he shows up. He's different from the movies, the Raimi movies, in that, the weird, military haircut's gone, the mustache is gone. He's got a very Alex Jones vibe about him.
Yeah, I hope that if they continue to use him, they don't proper go into the Alex Jones stuff.
Okay.
No, I know you find it funny, but like Alex Jones is like a horrendous piece of shit.
That's true.
And I like my J. Jonah Jameson to be a dick with like
Some principle.
a withered heart inside. You know, like there's something going on there. So I hope they don't go like too far and just make him like outrageously horrible. But
I think aesthetically, at least.
yeah, and they do get him declaring that. Not only he says, "Oh, Mysterio's been murdered by Spider-Man," like all his general like anti-Spider-Man stuff, but then he starts saying stuff about like Mysterio being a true hero, which is amazing because that's fucking what happened in the original comic. And I know this doesn't inherently make it good, but I like it. So fuck everyone. It's great just to see him. Because we talked about this in episode 5 when we talked about the Mysterio origin stuff. The idea of Jameson like standing beside like Mysterio and supporting him as a true hero is so great, and it makes even more sense in this context because of the way Mysterio's presented himself to the world.
Yeah, he just suddenly died.
Yeah, and presumably the logistics of how it all worked out is a bit confusing because you think it was revealed to the public that the attack was all staged.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they don't have enough context. There's still this idea of Mysterio being this kind of hero who had a lot of good press out there.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man's this kind of guy that no one really knows much about.
Yeah. It's not quite the level of, like, he's a menace, we're going to get rid of him. It's not at that level yet, but, like, that might be the start of it.
Well, if people believe it, it's enough for it. And there's a lot in this movie about, which is almost a bit on the news with the fake news thing of Mysterio saying stuff about people would believe what you tell them to believe.
Yeah.
And which fits into his last ditch attempt of it almost doesn't matter if it's ridiculous what he's accusing him of. Why would Spider-Man do this? But it's enough for people to distrust him.
Yeah.
And another interesting way to divert it away from the route of him being the new Iron Man, like beloved hero. It's that at that moment of celebrity, he becomes a object of hatred.
Yeah.
But then,
J. Jonah Jameson kind of cuts back, and then there's footage of like Mysterio going, "Spider-Man is Peter Parker."
And then reaction shot, hands on head, fuck.
And there's like a picture of Peter that comes up on the screen as well.
Right, yeah.
And then like a really awkward like yearbook photo.
I think this really fucking surprised me.
I remember saying to you beforehand that I think he's like the most obvious way for him to talk to emulate Iron Man was for him to repeat the end of the first Iron Man movie where Iron Man reveals his identity to the world.
And they do it in a different way.
But not in the way that I thought they would.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, another comic reference, which I forgot to mention in the last one.
Yeah.
They foreshadow this slightly.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he's talking with his mascot.
Yeah.
He's talking to Aunt May and Happy, and he's talking to them about their relationship, but he makes it out like he's making an announcement of his identity to the world in some way.
Yeah.
And I think they might even replicate some of the shots and some of the dialogue from when he reveals his identity in the Civil War comic.
Yeah.
And so they do kind of build it up in that way, and then go, "Oh no, we're just playing with you," which is great because if he'd done it in that way, I don't think that's a good idea, and it wasn't that great an idea in Civil War either. No,
it kind of like it fucked up Civil War for ages afterwards. Like the timelines had to be reset. Spider-Man sold his like marriage for like his Aunt May's life or something stupid. It's all
this is 100% going to be a weird little bullshit
episode. Hell yes!
At some point, because that's some weird little bullshit.
It is some bullshit.
Yeah,
well,
no, we got a similar situation though where he's been outed to the world.
But yeah, they were kind of playing with the identity stuff a little bit throughout the movie. If you think about it, there's little bits where like he's talking to like Sam Jackson. He's like, "Look, like people can't know who I am," and there's little things where like this actually might be come back later to bite him. Like the whole thing we're talking about with like the whole startup team that Mysterio has, obviously is like a way of like foreshadowing it. I felt it was on the cards at some point. The funny thing about this movie is that like he's trying not to be Iron Man, but he's like made to be Iron Man in the way that he's not really like intending to be made Iron Man.
Yeah, he's kind of like a horrible version of it.
It's like a Life of Brian, but with like Spider-Man and Iron Man.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. What do you think about this twist? Other than just the moment of like, oh my god, I'm like surprised. Like going forward, do you actually like it as a story plot line to follow or not?
I don't know how to do. Like, what I don't want them to do is that Peter go, like, okay, fine, I'm Spider-Man, and then like have the entire like secret identity thing like thrown into the walls.
Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page as this, because the first thing that happened, I had this weird. The end of this movie, that or at least that credit thing, was such a flip flop weird thing for me.
Emotional roller coaster.
Because it starts off, I'm like, okay, this is pretty standard. Then saw Mysterio blame, I'm like, that's a good twist. Then JK turns up, and I lose my shit. Then they do the reveal of the identity, and I'm like shocked in a wow, I can't believe they shocked me. But then immediately after, I'm like, oh no, are they just making him Iron Man? Are they just doing away with the secret identity thing entirely? And I think I got enough trust in them from the way they've played things in this movie that they won't do it that way.
Yeah.
Personally, I hope they do this kind of in between route where it might be a bit much if he goes to Doctor Strange and says, mind wipe everyone please, which is a thing that happened in the comics. Because that is, to be honest, I'd be fine with it in terms of the ends. Yeah. Of like, we're getting back to the secret identity, but the means of it is kind of stupid.
It's a most like, it's a Deus Ex Machina. I'm not really down for it at all.
Yeah, but I think there's an in-between way you can do it, where they find some convoluted way to fake prove that he's not Spider-Man.
Definitely.
And I'd much rather that, because that's a plot line that's happened in the comics once or twice, and I actually quite like that kind of story. And if they did that in a bigger way,
they touch upon it. They do an episode like that in the Spectacular Spider-Man actually, but instead of like Mysterio, it's Venom who kind of like outs him as Spider-Man. And there's this whole like episode of Inquest where like, is Peter Parker Spider-Man? And he goes on the interrogations like, no, I'm not Spider-Man. And then Venom is constantly trying to unmask him and then shit like that. And there's a whole thing about that for an episode. I don't think I'll go to that point, but the way I think they'll do it is actually kind of referenced in the second post-credit scene.
Well, we'll just go into that, and then we can double back.
Yeah.
So the second post-credit scene, it's revealed that Fury
and
Maria Hill, this whole movie, they've been acting a bit differently. Turns out they were Skrulls. Not only were they Skrulls, but they were I've forgotten his name, but the main Skrull, Talos, from Captain Marvel, who are acting in Fury's stead while he is off-world on space bus.
He's space holiday.
He's on a space resort, like hanging out with a bunch of Skrulls somewhere.
Just hanging around, just barefoot.
Yeah, and how does that play in? Are you saying?
I think, first of all, we're kind of building up to Secret Wars. And second of all, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be like a Skrull Spider-Man that's going to show up and Peter's going to be like out of costume. And they'll be like, oh shit, it can't be Spider-Man because Spider-Man's over there.
Right. But then I wouldn't want that, because that would mean the resolution of this wouldn't be in a Spider-Man movie, you know? I'd like the sequel to this movie to be a Spider-Man movie, not another crossover thing where you kind of get a bit of Spider-Man and then we get back to the Spider-Man movie and we don't have time to deal with any of it. Because again, that would be skipping over the thing you promised.
It's a whole storyline you can have, which you're not having. Yeah.
As far as the secret invasion stuff.
Secret invasion, is it?
Yeah.
Secret Wars is the one where he gets a black costume, isn't it?
Yes. There's more than one Secret Wars. It's fine. There's Secret Wars. There's Secret War. There's Infinity War. There's Infinity Gauntlet. There's Civil War. There's Civil War 2.
Civil Gauntlets?
That just sounds like Thanos hanging out on his own, like on a farm, like eating that giant weird fruit he eats.
That whole scene where he's making soup, I weirdly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a nice scene.
Yeah, I don't know why that scene's not meant to be funny. It's meant to be like this
solemn
Avengers in action sort of thing, but when they beat the shit out of him when he's trying to eat breakfast, it's just so funny. It's just like he's like seasoning it, and he just gets like
he just loses his arm.
Oh, it's like
he gets like jumped like something out of like Boys in the Hood or something.
Yeah, but
some motherfucker.
We're going back. For those who don't know, Secret Invasion is one of the many Marvel comic crossover events in which the Skrulls invade Earth, pose as heroes, is this sort of invasion of the body snatchers thing, but superheroes.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of assumed they do that because they've already done Civil War and the Infinity Gauntlet stuff. So it's kind of like the next big obvious thing to do, especially since they introduced the Skrulls. A little bit harder because the Skrulls in the comics, there are good Skrulls, but for the most part, the Skrulls are assholes. So them invading Earth, it's a whole thing. Also in the comics, the reason they invade Earth is because Galactus fucks up their entire homeworld. Galactus, Devourer of Worlds, just decimates their planet. They become refugees. They have to find a new home. They pick off and they slowly take it over several years, but then they eventually reveal themselves. That's an easy thing for the MCU to do because there's things in the comics where they tease it. Yeah. Where, for instance, they're fighting someone and one of their fellow heroes is killed. And everyone's like, oh my god. But then as they die, they're revealed to be a Skrull. And they're like, wait, what the fuck? The whole time that person was a Skrull?
Yeah.
Lots of fun stuff you can do with that. It's going to obviously play out a little bit differently because in this, the Earth has an alliance with the Skrulls. And the Skrulls have been, for the most part, a benevolent race. So I imagine there'll probably have to be some kind of fringe element who likes, like, there's an aspect of Skrulls who...
Want to, like, do it like Magneto, for example.
Yeah, so I can't imagine it'll be, like, Talos, who's, like, leading the Skrulls. No. Anyway, that could be a whole thing.
Yeah, like, Spider-Man, like, can you scroll up and, like, swing a Spider-Man for a bit? So, like, get off my tail. Which I guess wouldn't be satisfying.
I think there's I don't know, they would have to come up with some specific way, I don't know how, but there's...
I really don't want it to be, like, Spider-Man's identity is public knowledge.
Honestly, I kind of hope that is like resolved as quickly as possible in a weird way.
Maybe like no one believes him. Or something stupid like that.
But the thing is, or maybe he gets loads of attention and not many people believe it, but then some people do, and eventually it's proven wrong for sure by some hijinks. But anyway, the main thing with this is that the thing I find more interesting is the idea of him being public enemy. And that's why I actually really like this twist. The whole thing of his identity being revealed, for me, I think that could have not happened. And I think it's almost like it's a really good shock twist, but it actually creates more problems than it does like actual interesting stories.
Yeah.
Personally, but the actual thing of him, people being not liking him, I fucking love that because it's another fucking comic adaptation. Because you know the whole thing in the comics of Spider-Man not being liked by the police and the public hate him, isn't just a case of people not trusting him. It comes from the fact that when Gwen Stacy died, and Norman Osborn died the same night in his Green Goblin garb, his costume was removed by a secret person who ended up being Harry Osborn. But basically, everyone knew that Spider-Man was in a fight, a random woman got killed during the fight, and then Norman Osborn got killed during a fight with Green Goblin. So it becomes, he ends up being accused of effectively the manslaughter of Gwen Stacy and for murdering Norman Osborn. Yeah. And many suspected him to be responsible for the murder of Captain Stacy as well. He dies a bit differently in the comics. He's like...
It's not like a lizard doesn't kill him.
No, it's Doc Ock.
Oh, shit.
In the comics, Doc Ock and Spider-Man are having a fight. Spider-Man does something to disable his arms. They go crazy. They knock over a chimney, and all like the bricks fall to the ground. Captain Stacy pushes a little girl out of the way and they hit him and he dies. Oh, Spider-Man has the same moment with him when Captain Stacy reveals, I know you're Peter Parker, look after Gwen.
Stay away from Gwen.
Well, he didn't say stay, he just says look after her, which is still like tragic.
Yeah.
But either way, people, because that was Spider-Man's fight, it's kind of his fault and people blame him for that. So police are actually out for him for murder. Yeah. And that he doesn't get cleared of that for like 150 issues or something. Shit. It's for I might be exaggerating, but not 150, like 100 issues, 50 issues, I don't know, a long period of time before it's officially cleared, and even after that there's a bit of distrust. I think doing this is a great way to separate Spider-Man, make him a loner.
Yeah.
Because I like Spider-Man as a loner, and I don't like... I don't know. He's not Superman. He's not someone who stands by police officers and shakes their hands and says, "Good job, fellas."
No.
He's the guy who turns up, tries to help. Everyone thinks he's part of the problem.
And he talks shit to a couple of police officers and runs away before they can do anything.
Yeah, exactly. I love that aspect of him, and also the fact that he makes problems for himself in that sometimes as well. For instance, there might be someone who's more on his side, but he's so sick of being shot at for doing the right thing that he's like really...
He lashes out at it.
He lashes out at them and he leaves, and then they're like, oh, maybe he is a jerk. It's a really cool dynamic, and I think this might be a good way to make the next one actually have that. They tried it in Amazing Spider-Man, but just didn't do anything with it.
It was kind of stupidly done.
Yeah, and they didn't really do it in a... I mean, there's a bit of distrust and everything in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
That's more of a J.J. Jameson
Exactly, and it's by the end of the movie, it's always about the public supporting Spider-Man.
But saving him, like they throw like garbage at the Green Goblin.
Yeah, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 goes super hard on everyone in the public. Fucking loves him.
Yeah,
and like and he's like putting on a fireman's hat to help them take down the thing. It's a very friendly thing.
Yeah,
which is fine, but less interesting to me. I think having a movie where it's Spider-Man against whatever foe he could be up against, but he's public enemy number one, that's fucking great. And it's a reason to not have him, be able to call in whatever superhero to help him out or whatever, or to not have S.H.I.E.L.D. on his side, or to not have all of this extra stuff.
Yeah.
He is actually on his own.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, you could have a team up still, but
I guess they'd be more concerned with public image. I guess a little bit.
But also, the people who don't know him might still think he's responsible. You don't know, but I like the idea of maybe, for instance, S.H.I.E.L.D. It's not a question of what secretly we know. We're still a body that that has bosses that have to apprehend you for what you did.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's a really good setup, and I'm actually maybe more interested. And I think they did that partly because they felt like after Endgame, they have to keep people coming back somehow. They're almost worried, that people are going to be like, "Oh, great, it's another Spider-Man movie," right after Endgame came out.
Yeah. I also think this might be a bit of a long shot, but
kangaroo.
Oh, I wish. I wish the kangaroo.
Webman.
Fucking man thing. But so interesting enough, in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, the episode where he's charged is not for murder, but for attacking John Jameson in the spaceship, kind of sets up this whole thing where everyone's after Spider-Man. It makes him resentful.
Ah, right, yeah, in the alien costume.
Bingo. And as well as that, it's only rumored at the moment, but apparently Amy Pascal's got a fucking boner for Spider-Man and Venom to be in the same movie, and it might not happen. Don't give me that face.
I'm rolling my eyes.
I think they left that door open for a reason. I think that might pave the way for a black suit costume if they so wanted to.
I think if they're doing it in this order where Tom Hardy gets his Venom shit going, there's a bunch of symbiote bullshit, and then later Spider-Man gets involved. If you're already doing it in that order, you can do it at any point.
Yeah.
And if Tom Holland's fine for doing these forever,
yeah,
then you can do it in Spider-Man 5,
But, yeah.
So I'd actually be okay with them doing it. I just don't want them to rush it in. And also, I don't think that they've got to, at this point, remember... People have more hatred for Spider-Man 3 than they do for the Amazing Spider-Man movies, which I think is unfair.
Because Spider-Man 3 is a messy,
has some qualities.
It's highly flawed rather than bad.
But the whole problem with Spider-Man 3 is that Sam Raimi and his cast and crew, they had a vision, and then last minute Avi Arad pushes them to include Venom, and they have to warp the entire script to the point where apparently the scriptwriter at one point considered making it 2 movies.
It should have been 2 movies.
Because they had so much shoved in, but he ended up finding a way to make it not work. But anyway,
Yeah.
they got to have it in their head of like fans aren't going to be happy if in the third Spider-Man movie in your series you shoehorn Venom in it.
Yeah.
I mean, people would still be a little bit excited because they've had the Venom movie now and it's a thing. But I don't know. If you're gonna do that, do it
properly.
Do it in a Spider-Man 4
or a 5 or a 6 or whatever.
Or have Spider-Man turn up in a Venom movie.
I actually prefer that.
You know, I wouldn't. I'm quite, to be honest, I'm not interested in seeing Spider-Man and Venom together that much
really.
because the whole, like we spoke about this in episode 10 when we spoke about Venom and the way he comes into Spider-Man the animated series, which this podcast is about, apparently.
Yeah, who'd have known?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get back to that one day.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, maybe not. This is good though.
Yeah, but that dynamic, if Eddie Brock and Peter Parker don't have a relationship and Eddie got the symbiote first, I don't really care about their interaction as much, but the idea of symbiote Spider-Man getting a different version of that, I'm happy to see that. Yeah. I'm also, just as a comic nerd, want to see a Spider-Man with the big fucking white spider on it because it looks cool.
It does look cool as hell.
Yeah, I don't know. That's got to happen at some point. I hope the next one just finds a way to weave another Spider-Man villain into this. I really thought they were going to do a trilogy, but after this development, I feel like you can't. I thought they were going to do a trilogy, and the third one would be Sinister Six, but I don't think they can do it.
There's so many they have to do.
There's too much.
Unless what they do is they end up like having 3 standalone movies and then having Spider-Man arcs throughout the rest of the movies, similar to how they did with Iron Man.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think they've got Tom Holland in young enough.
Yeah.
That seeing him grow up and be an adult and go to college, and
that would be incredibly cool.
I'm looking forward to that because there's different aspects of Spider-Man besides the high school stuff, you know, which I do love.
Like the broke millennial or something.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I love him living in a shitty apartment. You know, it's relatable.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. But as far as this next one goes, I think you could have. I don't know who you could fit in, but you could fit in almost anyone because there's no one who ties specifically into that plot other than Mysterio.
No.
So and then there's people like
got like Michael Keaton could come back. You got like
I remember reading reports that Michael Keaton was in this movie, and that was like a pretty hard confirm to the point that I remember people like thinking about it, like how would he come in, and then people were assuming maybe his character will develop throughout these movies. Maybe there's some more teasers of Sinister Six, and there wasn't any of that in this, which is kind of interesting actually. Yeah. But maybe in the next one we'll get Michael Keaton come back. We'll get Michael Mando's Scorpion coming back. Maybe Shocker coming back.
Rhino.
Maybe we'll get a Rhino. There's a lot of things they could bring in.
Chameleon they could do.
I think it's going to be anyone apart from. They might have Norman Osborn, I'd say, but if they do, they're not going to have Green Goblin.
They might have Dr. Octopus.
The thing is with Dr. Octopus is I feel like if they're going to do him again, they're going to do a more Master Planner comic book Doc Ock.
Rather than the Alfred Molina man.
Rather than the sympathetic, tragic... He's
going to be just straight up asshole.
Yeah, he's going to be a dickhead and he's going to be behind the scenes and he's going to be outsmarting Spider-Man, that kind of dynamic. And maybe that would work in a third movie. I'm not sure how.
I don't think in this one, to be honest.
But then also, yeah, if you're going to have the other villains, maybe have more than one of them. Because I don't think there's an issue with putting too many villains in a movie, as long as they make sense to the plot. Like, for instance, Spider-Man 3, the problem with too many villains in that is that
3 different arcs.
Well, yeah, the Sandman story is happening at the same time as it will just happen for a while, then it will just stop, and then you spend half an hour with Harry Osborn, then it stops, and you spend half an hour with Eddie Brock, and then at the end, Venom just finds Sandman and goes, "Hey, let's fight Spider-Man." They go, "Okay," because the movie needed them to. Then in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, you got like a bunch of shit going on, but Spider-Man and Electro have their fight, and it just so happens that at that point, Harry decided, he just went, "Oh, look, there's a glider," stands on it, flies over, does the Gwen Stacy death the end.
It's just contrivances.
Yeah.
He goes to Electro, we're going to make Spider-Man bleed. Even though Electro can't make Spider-Man bleed. He can't. It's gonna shock him. He's gonna be like, ow, that hurts. And that's gonna happen a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, of all the nitpicks to make with that movie, that's one of the minor ones.
I feel it's just a really stupid line that doesn't make any sense. In a very obvious way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million.
That's
things.
That can be like any point in the movie, to be fair.
Yeah, my favourite bit is when Peter gets a little post-it note and sticks it on a photo of Gwen and writes, "Do I need to lose you too?" While like he listens to Coldplay.
Oh, great.
Anyway, but I mean, if you want to hear me talk about the Amazing Spider-Man 2, I'll be on a podcast soon enough on the Waffle Press talking about it with Diego Crespo. So we won't talk about it anymore now because I've already fucking talked about it enough.
Well, yeah, like Crespo's got a whole thing he's gonna do, and we don't want to like ruin his time. Sorry, Crespo.
Another thing I have to say is I had a big prediction for this movie, and I was super wrong.
What was that?
I really thought it was. I thought Chameleon was going to be in this movie.
Oh,
and I never told... I don't think I told you because I thought I was so sure I was right that I didn't want to spoil it for you. Because, for one thing, I knew that Mysterio was going to be pulling some kind of con.
Yeah.
I knew that Samuel L. Jackson was in this movie, that Nick Fury was in this movie. I suspected straight away that it wasn't actually Nick Fury. For one thing, there was this whole random thing in the marketing where he had the eye patch on the wrong side and a few things.
Oh shit, I thought it was a mistake.
Well, that might still be a mistake. I thought that was going to be a plot point where they revealed where someone noticed that it was on the wrong side or something. But then pretty soon into the movie, Nick Fury is acting a lot different and he's being more of a dick.
Yeah.
And everything he's saying is kind of playing into Mysterio's hands and he's being really oblivious to a lot of stuff. And I thought, this doesn't seem very much like Nick Fury. Maybe, this would be... I was more and more certain that it would be Chameleon. The other thing is that, for those that don't know, Chameleon, his name is Dimitri. There's a character in this called Dimitri.
Yeah.
He was cast in the movie and everyone saw the casting and thought, this is a Spider-Man character called Dimitri. He's the Chameleon.
Yeah.
He was put in here, and he also kind of looks like Kraven.
Looks a lot like Kraven, yeah.
Who's called Sergey, but is Chameleon's half-brother.
Yeah.
So they're both related, and I thought maybe they're going to have Chameleon and a little bit of Kraven, or a hint at Kraven in the future. I really thought that Mysterio is going to have some lackeys or teammates or something working with him. And all the way, and then you get to that post-credit scene. As soon as you see him in the car and he starts fiddling with his eye patch, I'm like, okay, it's not them. They're going to do the reveal now. It's going to be Chameleon's going to whip off a mask or he'll have a shape-changing device or something. And I was so, smug in guessing that. And then they fucking turned into Skrulls. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. I was completely wrong. It was kind of great because I love Talos and I find him funny. I would have preferred it as Chameleon. Because I think that's a really easy way to slip that in. But that's just me.
It's a bit like that scene in Homecoming where the barge is falling apart and Spider-Man comes it all up and he's like 98% there. You were 98% there, but it doesn't matter because the barge is still going to fall apart.
Yeah. I don't know. It was just so weird because But part of me thinks that they put the Dimitri character in it. Like they needed a name for a shield guard who was going to be gruff.
And Russian.
Yeah, and they were like... Let's call him Dimitri. It'll throw everyone the fuck off.
Similar with the MJ thing from Homecoming.
Right. Yeah, people will just assume that it's somehow related to Kraven or to Chameleon, and nope.
Not at all.
The other thing that I just remembered is that they kind of sneak in some other Spider-Man villains into this in a way.
Do they?
You know the Elementals?
Yeah.
Well, one of them is fiery, absorbs metal, is a molten man, like the villain Molten Man.
Like the villain Molten Man, yeah.
Yeah, who isn't that interesting, so it's fine not to have a movie about him, but I kind of feel like that is kind of a little bit, just to have that physical threat of that kind of fight.
Yeah.
But not actually have him in that. The other thing, and this is a way more 100% definitely an adaptation, is the water guy is Hydro Man.
Yeah.
Because they make a joke about it where there's a news report and then they say they're talking about rumors and they're like, there's a rumor that it was, and then they name the exact name of Hydro Man. I've forgotten his name now, but they say apparently he was caught up underwater with an experimental generator that went haywire, and then someone like poo-poos it, is like, oh, that's ridiculous. They'll come up with everything.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, how Hydro Man was created in the comics.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fun way, especially with Hydro Man, who sucks.
He's so terrible.
We'll cover him at some point in Spider-Man the Animated Series.
Oh yeah, we will.
I mean, as a kid, I remember him sucking in this.
Like he's in the opening credits, he just like dive bomb Spider-Man and misses.
Yeah,
and you get it.
Not too long ago, I read the origin issues of Hydro Man in the Amazing Spider-Man comics.
Yeah.
And I can, I mean, we'll talk about him at some point, obviously, but I can say as a spoiler, he fucking sucks so bad. Yeah, and I don't know, in terms of like that big rock monster and then the wind thing, I
thought the rock monster was Sandman.
I think that's more of a tenuous link, and also I feel like burning through Sandman...
This early, yeah.
I don't know if they'll ever do Sandman, because so much of Sandman was in Spider-Man 3, but...
I think it was done in Spider-Man 3 if it helps.
Yeah, and then the wind one, I can't think of what... Oh, no, the wind one I'm pretty sure is one, because they keep calling it... At first they say the Cyclone, and then they keep saying just Cyclone a few times, and it's not just them fucking up with the punctuation, because there's a villain called Cyclone, who isn't like wind, he's super speed, he's like Quicksilver, but he runs like fast enough that he creates like little wind traps and tornadoes and stuff like that. So he's called Cyclone.
Yeah.
And the fact that Nick Fury says Cyclone like 5 times made me think, okay, that was their way of doing a nod to him. I think that's fun to do it that way. I hope they do that kind of thing in the future a bit more.
Just like little like nods there and there.
Yeah, I mean, even if they're... I like them to be more direct than the Elementals were, but if they were to like drop in like these... I don't know, like, fuck it, have the Beetle in there. I don't give a shit. Drop the Beetle in. Just don't have him be a main guy, you know?
Stiltman, get some Stiltman up in this bitch.
Oh no, you got to save that for Daredevil.
Oh.
Come on, season 4.
Daredevil
Netflix.
Season 4. Come on, you heard us, Netflix.
I love it. I love that if they came back, everyone's like, oh shit, they teased the return of Bullseye. Is Bullseye going to suit up? Is he going to be full Bullseye now? No, it's Stiltman.
It's Stiltman.
Yeah, it's just
10 episodes of Stiltman.
And then every episode they cut back to what was the name? Point Dexter.
Yeah, he's just crippled again.
He's just in a coma.
Yeah,
he's just asleep in bed.
Yeah, or he's just become like completely reformed. He just helps children in like a church somewhere.
Yeah,
ironically. But
anyway. Yeah. Do you have any villains you want to come up in the next one other than Doc Ock or returns of other villains? Is there any like rogues gallery people that you're like, that would be cool if they came up?
I mean, like we've already mentioned Mysterio because he's like your guy.
I think the next one should be about Mysterio as well.
No. I was like, but yeah, like
that's what I really want. I just want
more Mysterio.
I want this series to become Mysterio
Homecoming.
Yeah, fuck it. Like they didn't think about that, did they? They're like, oh shit, how do we retitle these? You don't put Spider-Man in the title. You put Mysterio : Spider-Man.
Yeah. So Spider-Man speaks.
Enter Spider-Man.
Speaking of Enter, maybe Electro would be cool. But maybe I know they're already doing this on the Sony side, but Kraven. I love Kraven. I love animal themed violence. Right. Not animal violence. I want to clarify. I don't want to see people attacking animals. I want to see people attack other people with animals, or animals attack people.
You want the animals to have agency in this situation.
I want them to be happen out, not like.
And you don't want that to be like horrible murder. You just want them to beat people up in a cartoonish way.
Or maybe peck somebody or bite somebody. Or my arm, God. Yeah, animal themed attacks.
Yeah, fuck it. Put Kraven and Chameleon in the next one. Yeah. I want it. Kraven, Chameleon, fucking Mysterio.
Fucking bring back Vulture. Bring back fucking Scorpion. I want a Sinister Six movie.
Yeah, I wonder.
I don't know if they can do it this time around.
The thing is, I think if they're doing Sinister Six movie, they either have to do Doc Ock first.
Yeah.
And give him his actual own movie.
Yeah.
Or they need to make the Sinister Six movie primarily about Doc Ock with returning villains.
Ooh, that would be good.
For instance, if there was a Spider-Man, what's it going to be called? Spider-Man...
Homeowners Association?
Spider-Man homeless. Oh fuck, that might even be. Spider-Man.
Retirement home.
Spider-Man no homo.
Spider-Man home on the range.
Spider-Man locked out of my house. That sucks.
Spider-Man eviction.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Spider-Man flat share.
What?
Got a flat share.
Oh, flat share. At least a flash share. I was like, what?
Oh no.
Spider-Man mortgage negotiation.
Spider-Man tenancy agreement. No,
Spider-Man housing crisis.
Yeah,
That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
We'll
It turns out this all happened a decade ago.
This is all being cut, by the way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, if they had the Spider-Man Far From Home 2, Spider-Man 3 2,
Spider-Man Further From Home,
I think they could deal with the whole on the run thing, resolve that, have a couple of villains in there, establish them, and then the one after that, if you had Doc Ock, there could be him masterminding 5 other villains to do his bidding while he has this huge grand plan. And it can still be about Doc Ock, but then you get your Sinister Six thing as well.
Yeah.
Rather than, I don't know, it might take too much time for all these villains to get their own movie and then do a Sinister Six.
As well as like Tom Holland being young enough, like you don't want him to burn out on these movies either.
At the same time, though, you want these people, him to have a bit of a history with these people a little bit, because that's the whole point, right? Is
having Sinister Six.
Is them, you know, I had someone like tweet the other day of like, the Sinister Six is so lame because one adult trying to kill a 16-year-old boy is kind of pathetic, but 6 people teaming up and failing to kill a 16-year-old boy is like hilariously pathetic.
It is so fun.
But yeah, that would be a lot of fun to do, and I'd love to see that. But I think they're probably playing the long game with that one because they don't want to rush into it.
Do you think
and it can make more money?
Do you think that Spider-Man will go on Disney Plus?
No. I mean, it's too expensive.
It's too expensive.
I don't know. I think there's enough goodwill there that they could give like a side adventure. That would be perfect, actually. If they had these big movies about all the actual like end of world stuff, but then in between you got like his 5 episodes of Peter Parker trying to get to class at the same time that he has to take on like fucking Prowler.
Or like someone like a minor villain, like the kangaroo can show up.
Or maybe not that low tier, but like someone who wouldn't make it into a movie, or one that wouldn't be that expensive.
Yeah.
You know, that you could do more with fight choreography as opposed to giant exploding bridges.
Yeah. I think there's so many stories to tell with this version of Spider-Man. I kind of feel like it's got the potential to be more fully realised than anything else we've come before.
That's the weird thing with these post-credit scenes, is that the whole revealing his identity and blaming him for that stuff puts it in a position where now I'm kind of anxious because I want to see the next one.
There needs to be more of these films.
Yeah, but then at the same time, I'm like, they could make something really interesting out of this, but if they fuck it up or they go in a direction I'm not interested in, and it's going to be a bummer. So I'm almost kind of anxious now, and I'm leaning towards thinking that they'd pull it off, but who knows.
In my perfect world, I'd have like a Spider-Man TV series, as well as the movies. I don't know what they're doing with Disney Plus, and it's not really clear what they're trying to do.
They're going to make $1 billion. Is what they're
going to just like buy a government somewhere, and then just like rule over us. And I'm happy for this. But yeah, like I think this raises so many questions, and it's like to the credit of the film, but like I'm kind of excited about Spider-Man movies again.
Yeah, that's not something I've had in a while, because I think Homecoming had it a little bit where I was excited, but also I had such reservations, and I felt at the time everyone seemed to really like love it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And I had just because I wasn't completely on board in the same way, it made me feel like a bit bummed out.
Yeah.
This time I feel like the response has been a little mixed, and I'm not like 100% like gushing over it, but I'm happy enough with it, which is I don't know. And also it takes a lot to win me over after Endgame. Not to say that Endgame was like this huge piece of shit or anything, but I think both of us, after ranking the MCU in our episode, also known as ranking the MCU, and talking about Spider-Man's Infinite Endgame and everything, in those episodes. I kind of I burned out so hard that I was just like, I don't fucking want to watch these movies anymore.
I think I ranked Endgame at like maybe number 8 out of 20, something like that. It was like mid to higher range because I feel like in 5 years we'll talk about Endgame, we won't watch it again. In the same way we watched the first Avengers, for example.
But then even like 8 out of 20, when most of them trend to being at least like watchable or good,
Yeah.
it just ceases to mean things at a certain point. Like when we get to like 30 and we say, well, it's in the top tier of 30, then you're like, well, there's 14 movies that are better than it though.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Anyway, I'm glad to like give a shit about cinematic Spider-Man again.
Yeah. I'm fascinated to see how they go with it. Because imagine it's Marvel and they have a plan.
And also John Watts, the director this time and last time, I liked the direction on Homecoming, kind of. Like, I thought he was fine, but he wasn't someone who, when he came back, I was like, yay, this guy's here. I almost would have liked another director to get a shot at it. But after seeing this, I'm like, I'm fine for this guy to keep going with it because he knows how to do this, how to do the action.
The camera work I thought was really
Yeah.
like I mentioned this in the last episode we did, but your camera work I thought, especially for the action scenes, was fantastic.
Well, I think the camera work in the action scenes is really good. The rest of it is like fine.
Yeah.
I was never impressed by like how he shot the Peter Parker scenes or anything, but they weren't like bad, so it's fine.
And he's good at like capturing like the teenage film, like the feeling of like a 16 Candles or a Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That kind of feeling. It's not. What's the who's the director of that? Is it John? Not John Hughes, is it? It's
John Hughes, yeah.
Is it John Hughes?
What did 16 Candles?
And Home Alone and all those movies.
Well, he wrote Home Alone. He didn't direct it, but yeah,
That's
Christopher Columbus. But yeah,
that guy. Regardless, I think there's a parallel in the two. Like,
they definitely tried to draw that comparison because they did that poster for Homecoming where they replicated Breakfast Club.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like that's a good direction to take these movies. I think it works for the aesthetic. I think it works.
I tell you what, I want them to properly do that though. You know,
A Breakfast Club with Spider-Man.
yeah, I'm not even fucking kidding. Like, you know that poster where they were like leaning on each other, and it like they've got like Flash and they got Ned and MJ and Peter and all this stuff. I want to see all those guys hang out. I don't want to see Peter have a scene with MJ and then Flash walks by, says one line, leaves. Peter has a conversation with Ned. Betty walks by, says one line. I'd like to see this as an ensemble.
A TV show.
No, but you can have a group of characters talking all at once in a room.
Yeah.
I don't need a whole movie of it. I just need
Like a scene or two of it.
I just need like more than like 30 seconds.
Or like a couple of lines here and there.
Yeah, and keeping it in New York and keeping it in high school allows you to do that. So let's go back to New York, please.
And Peter's like trying to be Spider-Man at the same time, and like he's having to like fuck with the Breakfast Club at the same time. Yeah, but there's so much potential for these movies. Like I just said, exciting times for Spider-Man for once. To get kind of negative Nancy about it all, like how could we fuck this up? How could
they're gonna fuck it up? Of course they are. Because
How do you think they will
I'm
fuck it?
hopeful now, so now they'll fuck it up.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
How do you think they fuck it up? It's left field.
I don't know. They'll make him permanently public identity because they can't be bothered to fuck with the secret identity thing.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be the worst thing they could
That'd
do.
be the most annoying thing.
Or they'll spend like the entirety of the next movie doing that, and also it will be a road movie, and also it will like star Captain Marvel for some reason.
You triggered all of the fucking MRAs now, you bastards. What have you done?
No,
you get like thousands of emails.
yeah, but like, well, why? I don't. They could do something like that. Like another reason to be like, we're worried people won't turn up for the Spider-Man movie, so let's just shove other stuff into it, and you know, like why not just like make a Spider-Man movie? I'm happy for there to be a little bit of crossover, but I kind of don't want.
Like I kind of want like. Now there's no Avengers, there's no real reason to kind of have this narrative building towards something other than Spider-Man.
Yeah. You know what? Fuck it. Like, the one person you can go in is Shuri. Shuri is working at the Wakanda outreach thing in New York City. She ends up at least having some kind of interaction with Peter Parker or Spider-Man. I'm fine with that and no one else.
Yeah.
I've been gesturing angrily at Henry with my finger.
Like I'm gonna do something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call up Kevin Feige.
Like he really hates Shori or something, but no one does.
Fuck you, Henry.
I know one guy who hated Shori, and I was like,
why?
I don't know. They're just like, I was like, I don't trust your opinion on anything.
You clearly don't know what you're talking about ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what this press credit scene did show is that I think they're willing to kind of like commit to a Spider-Man universe a bit more.
What do you mean?
The first post credit scene is a very, very like Spider-Man like centric one. They're making the point to establish a universe.
Right. Okay. Going back to your last question, this is how they can fuck it up, which is they resolve this in not a Spider-Man movie, or he stars in another crossover thing.
And it's fun.
They don't have time to do the identity thing, so they just brush it over. It gets dealt with in a line or two. They move on without having dealt with it properly. And enough time has passed that they couldn't have really done it anyway, so they just... I don't know.
There's some things Aunt May.
Exactly, I think, and it would obviously matter more with this. I can't see him doing it, but I mean, it's possible. I'm hoping that they're using this start of Chapter 2, Phase 1, or whatever, to like be like, okay, our success kind of got in our own way a little bit last time around. Let's try and plan even more, so that we don't get in a situation where we have to release movies in between part 1s and part 2s, and stuff like having a Civil War movie be in the Captain America movie and then have to be resolved across other crossovers.
I think they've earned the movie going public's trust at this point.
I think they have, but they've also got their exhaustion as well.
Yeah, we've kind of got fatigue as well.
Talking of fatigue,
we've kept you for long enough, folks. Between this episode and the last episode, we've been here for 2 days, and I didn't have a beard when I started.
Yeah.
But I do have now. But no, that kind of concludes our talk about the end credits scene in Spider-Man Far From Home. If you started with this one because you're a fucking idiot, go back and watch the fucking Far From Home episode where we talk about the actual movie. You might really enjoy it.
You could also listen to the episodes that this podcast is actually meant to be about, which is Spider-Man the Animated Series.
Sometimes we do talk about it, but we're probably going to do that. Please go back and check those because they're great as well. And yeah, do all the things you do with the podcast. Subscribe, go to our Twitter page. We've got Tumblr now, we're on YouTube. We're fucking everywhere, guys. Track us down, find us.
From Instagram, we're not going.
Not yet.
No. Okay, you do it then.
We don't know how the future's going to... You know what? We'll get this. This is a whole thing. We're burning through time. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We hope you enjoyed our little chat, and that's the end of the podcast. Seriously, go about your lives.